I would just buy shoes for super cheap, take them home, research, learn all about them, flip them for more money, and just take the money and do it again and again and again until Nike actually banned me from shopping at their stores.
Welcome to the Dad's Got Kicks podcast. I'm your host, Esteban Serrano. And as always, joining me are the Splash Uncles themselves, Efren and Josh. What up, guys? And what's up with the Splash Uncles moniker? Like, we got to talk about this. How did this come about?
we played a lot of pickup over the years, and it was always with younger guys. You know, they got legs, they got hops. But Josh and I would sit in the corner, we'd sit at the elbow. We got the long range thing going. We became the Splash Uncles. It was right around the time, you know, Steph and Clay were doing their thing, but we couldn't be the Splash Brothers because they coined the phrase first. We let them have it, right. Whatever.
I think it was just a kind way of them saying, you guys are really old, but you can shoot. You know what I mean? That was just the nicest possible way for them to say that. But let me tell you right now, let me clear any confusion up. We won some games, didn't we, Efren?
Absolutely.
Those guys had hops. Those guys could drive, but they couldn't box out. They couldn't play defense.
They couldn't close out.
No, they couldn't. They couldn't guard us on the wing. That's for sure.
Couldn't close out.
Oh, my goodness, man.
You give them one jab, that was it.
I'd like to think we still haunt their dreams.
Yeah. There's just one picture.
What haunts my dreams when I think about the Splash Uncles? I think about you guys wearing matching jackets. That picture still haunts me in my dreams. And I was hoping that it had nothing to do with that image, and I'm glad that it doesn't. But I'm still never calling you guys this ever again.
Let's never say never. That might be our logo.
There's
Splash Brothers logo.
What?
On our own line of sneakers.
Oh my goodness.
That's part of our BFF starter kit, is getting the matching denim jackets.
Yeah. That is not
$19.99, available everywhere.
Oh my God, that should never have been a thing. Anyway, we got a dope podcast for you guys today. We're gonna be interviewing our second guest.
Come on.
In the pod's history. SHOEZEUM is coming up. We're looking forward to that. But first, we got a brand new segment. I think this was Josh's idea, if I can give you credit for. You know, we always imagine things and, think what if. Well, now we have a segment called What If. And today it's what if Travis Scott continues his meteoric rise as a sneaker designer and collaborator? Will he pass the sensei himself, Kanye West?
Sensei.
And will he blow up bigger both in music and in sneaker culture? Will he completely overtake everyone? And will the flame burn up the Ye the way that the Yeezy jumped over the Jumpman, let's say? What do you guys think about this?
Josh, you go first, man.
Oh my gosh, I was just gonna say, Efren, you need to take this one, man. I know you have thoughts. All right, so first thought is this: is like, in order to determine can he overtake him, I think you have to assess where he's at right now. Speaking of him, Travis Scott, where they're at in their career, both musically, but also where they're at in just the level of influence I think they have in the industry. And for me right now, if you're looking at it, if you take resale, if you take hype as a measurement of where they're at, right now, a Travis is going to go for a higher price than any type of Yeezy that's on the market, except for maybe some of those old Yeezy designs, whether that be in his time with Nike, or whether that be some like the Turtle Doves, the stuff that came out, the V1s. Right now, Travis is kicking his tail when it comes to resale. So is that even an indicator we should consider?
Yeah, I think so, especially given the fact that Travis doesn't have any original pair yet.
Right.
But, but to his credit, the originality that he's taken to some of our favorite silhouettes have definitely changed the game. It wasn't a Travis Scott colorway per se, as much as it was a almost reconstruction or, really, adding his flair to it. So I definitely feel like there's, we have to measure that until we see an original for real Travis?
I think you can compare the influence. I think they both kind of are comparable in that area. Kanye has more of a career, like a lengthy, long-lasting influence, and Travis Scott is more like meteoric rise. If you take a temperature of what it is today, like you said, Josh, he's definitely, I feel like, surpassed that in that aspect. But to your point, S, he hasn't really come out with his own thing. It's always been a collab, and it's not, I want to say, as frequent as what Adidas and Kanye are doing with the Yeezy brand, where it feels like maybe there's a little oversaturation there as of late.
Right.
Yeah, but I think it's important to note like where Travis is at. It's almost like an NBA player getting a signature shoe versus just getting an endorsement with the shoe. Sometimes they have to test out, how those guys are doing with the brand before they're like, hey, we're going to create your own, signature shoe.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the same thing that like they're kind of doing with Travis right now, where it's like, hey, let's give you a few takes on some classic silhouettes. I definitely think it's almost in the same vein as like what Virgil's allowed to do with some classic silhouettes on the off-white side of things.
Right.
Like Travis just kind of re-envisioning what that silhouette could look like with a modernized kind of feel or vibe. But I'm thinking like they're using this as like testing the waters. I do believe that there's probably a Travis Scott signature sneaker that is on the horizon for the next 3, maybe 5 years, maybe before that. But I know it's coming. It feels like it's coming.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I also feel like the excitement around a Travis Scott sneaker release is a little more exciting than a Travis Scott album or music release at the moment, I feel like. Now, as we record this podcast this earlier in the week, I know that Travis has a record coming out on Friday with Young Thug and MIA. But by the time everyone hears it, you guys will all know this, and it won't, it won't be news. But I feel like, he's becoming where his brand and popularity is bigger than the body of work and the music. Whereas with Yeezy, Kanye's music still moves the needle. It still is an event when it drops. It's still, a must listen. And he's not in the space where like a Michael Jordan, where you really didn't need to know the body of work to appreciate the sneaker and know what the sneaker is. There's no one who rocks Yeezys who just loves the way the Yeezys look or feel. Like they're wearing them because Kanye West stamped them and put them out. What I will say, where I feel like they're too similar, is in colorway. Like they have a very earth tone, like palette when it comes to the colors. I think aside from that blue Travis Scott Jordan 4, I think it was, that dropped, everything else has been in the tan neighborhood.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Kanye, post Nike was like all lit, great colors. And then it got over to Adidas and it was just like boring post-apocalyptic colorway, like really, really sad earth tone stuff. I feel like if he was, and to your point, Efren, about oversaturation, I feel like the reason why it feels oversaturated is because we're getting the same color on the same silhouette in different color blocking ways over and over and over again. And it's really, really, really like sad. I feel like, the blue one, the blue 700 that they just dropped, they dropped like 12 pairs of them. And, Josh has one, but they dropped 12 pair of them. And like, that's the brightest Yeezy ever made in life, aside from like the semi-frozen yellow. Like, you're not going to get a great blue Yeezy like that.
Right.
And they dropped 12, but they've got 1,000 of the gray, Israfil. There's 1 million of those, and like we don't want a sad gray sneaker. The not Supersonics, the Spurs boring uniforms aren't hot right now. We don't want no corny. We want that purple and gold. We want some, something with some flair and some color to it.
Yeah. No, I think that's a valid point, and I think you're right. The consistency of one, like the volume of releases. on the Yeezy side of things. I think that
Right.
there's a hypersaturation where, you know, you run the risk of dulling the value or the desire of people to even have those when they're so readily available. And when every silhouette in some way looks like the last drop, I feel like you're also kind of shortchanging the strategy on the business side. But I think Kanye's a genius. I mean, the longevity that he's had, and even in just comparing this other metric, I'm thinking like Kanye just had a deal with Gap, right? Like a huge clothing brand.
Bong.
Yep.
Boom. Travis recently had a deal with McDonald's, which
Crazy.
another kind of really interesting kind of pairing, but one that like I think, and I don't know if this is right, so you'll have to fact check me, but I think they said that McDonald's hadn't done like a brand endorsement with an individual like that in the same way since like Jordan. That was the last person that they had really featured in the same way.
Right.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I'll tell you, like the number of people I saw going and buying a Travis Scott meal at
I
McDonald's.
bought maybe 4 of them.
There you go. People that are like, yo, I don't do McDonald's, you know, like literally they were in the drive-thru. I'll take 6 Travis Scott meals.
Right.
Right. So
Exactly.
like, I mean, he has influence even in that sphere, but I'm still trying to think like, does Kanye have more ability, or has he been given more ability to like own a brand and lead a brand? I think that's yes. Where Travis right now, I think other companies are still using his brand as a musician and as a fashion icon at this point to sort of influence their brand instead of letting him go off and build his own thing. So my question for him is like, when do you go off and build your own, beyond the music industry, your own, become a mogul in whether it be the clothing industry, the sneaker industry? I think Kanye's there, and it'll be interesting to see how Travis attacks the same space.
Right.
You can't forget about the Reese's Puffs too.
Oh, that's right. Travis Puffs.
Man. And I mean, also the merch that came out with McDonald's came out in waves. And I think there were 3 releases that dropped, and you had 24 or 48 hours to pick up in each wave. And then, like, you know, and it granted, it's some of the most disgusting items that you've ever seen. You know what I mean? But like some of them, in terms of like the chicken nugget pillow, genius. The tray that you get at McDonald's, genius. You know what I mean? Like there were moments. The rugs, genius. Like those are some items that I'm like, these will last. These are great. But those T-shirts were terrible. But, you know, even when you compare them to Kanye's clothing, like all of those things are terrible. Back when the, I think it was maybe season 1 or 2 of his clothing line, you know, we came up with a game where we would go homeless or Kanye. Like, which one is this, a homeless person or is it someone wearing Yeezy season 2? Like, we couldn't tell.
No, but people,
and that was
people
sad.
copied that. I mean, look at some of the Pharrell stuff that's coming out now with Adidas. It looks like Kanye stuff.
Yeah,
you
man.
know, the oversized sweats, plain earth tones, kind of just. I mean, that to me, I look at it, I'm like, well, that's Kanye's influence right there. So yeah, maybe is it Kanye or homeless? But a lot of people adopt it. I mean, even for me, I feel like I like wearing the sweatshirt with the long tee hanging out below it. I don't know. There's just something like fun about matching that. Let your sneakers kind of do the talk versus like what you're wearing on the rest of your body. But I don't know. I look at that almost as a win for him. As boring as it sounds, that he's like pushed his influence so far that that's adopted into mainstream culture, where like you can go out looking like that and people are like, oh wow, that's a dope fit. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
But where's the line? Where's the line between being different and just flat out ugly?
Right, and that's the question. I think that's a great question, because especially for me being like a hip hop like historian and know it all and part of the culture for the last 10, 15, I would say, years, I'm used to artists who come out and impact and affect the fashion aspect of you know, aesthetic in a positive way or a different way. And we think back to, you know, Biggie, you know, with Versace, you know, with Tupac, with Karl Kani, with Aaliyah, with Tommy Hilfiger, and having girls wearing boxers and like really baggy, you know, now they call them boyfriend jeans, but back in the day they were just oversized baggy jeans. You had Wu-Tang, who really brought in the military, you know, the camouflage, you know, Timberland, you know, look. you had all of these different, you had the Dickie era, you had all these different vibes and energy, and all of them were fashion forward.
Yeah.
And then I feel like, right now we're just in a really sad state in terms of fashion when it comes to, people like Kanye or Travis. It's like, I don't want to wear brown, fam. I'm good on all of this brown. Give us something exciting. Give us something that will change the game. When Kanye came in, poloed out, we loved it. It was collegiate, it was classic. It was Americana. We loved that vibe from him. And then it became straight up mail it in. I'm going to wear what they wear at rehab, which is these big sweatpants and looking like an inmate. Now, you know what I mean? Like, unfortunately, we follow Kanye to the dark sunken place of fashion if that's where he's going to take us. You know what I'm saying? Like,
look at his slides. His slides are ridiculous.
Yeah, man.
Come on. Or the Skeletors. What are those?
Come on, bro. What are those?
But they'll sell out. They'll sell out.
I want to buy them, but still.
If he came out with, remember Zoolander? Remember Zoolander when they came out with a derelict line, which is literal trash? If he came out with that, it would be fire.
He did.
Yeah, he did. Basically, right?
He did. He did. He came out and it was $300,
Basically,
t-shirts and stuff.
Jump into the dumpster, crawl out.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I know a guy who would rock them. I'm not mentioning names.
Why do we know?
Oh my God. I want to bring this subject to a close with this last what if. It's a sub what if within the what if, if you will.
A what if.
A what if. You ready? What if Travis Scott's next Nike collaboration was his take on a Air Yeezy?
Oh, I knew you were going there too.
How do you feel about him touching those silhouettes?
Ooh.
B, would you be on board or would you not?
Let me just start by saying this. If you recall, Nike let Kyrie touch the Yeezy colorway, the Solar Red, which, man, that was such a disgrace and disappointment. Not that Kyrie got to touch it, but that they unfurled that classic colorway with a pair of Kyries. I mean, that's just bad. I think if they had waited for a guy like Travis to come in, now that especially I think Kanye mentioned in some interviews that he'd be down to see Nike bring his stuff back. I think that would actually be pretty sick. And I'd be interested to see how Travis could put a contemporary spin on some of the classic shape and even just like the textures that were all a part of those sneakers. I mean, I would love to have a pair of those in my collection just because of like the unique way in which Kanye spun texture and color and just put off of those things to create something fantastic.
That's a fact. Efren, you are deep in thought over there.
You broke his brain.
This is Michael Jordan Space Jam 1 OG and LeBron James Space Jam 2. I feel like if it's done the right way, it can honor the original and then also live on its own, and not infringe on what was already done. But could you imagine that outrage if he came out with an even redder October? I mean, man.
It'd be a brown November, probably.
I was gonna say that's
yes, just
brown November.
Like he came out with a red October and just reversed the swoosh. That would be.
Come on, bro.
You got to do something different. You can't just reverse the swoosh.
Nah, you got to freak that, bro.
Exactly. Just honor the OG. I mean, I love this idea though, S.
I do too. S, you got to tell us what would Travis need to do to make you covet a collaboration where he reintroduced the Air Yeezy back with his own flair?
Well, one, I definitely want. This is my thinking. I want a Kanye blessing. I want it on a record.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I want the Kanye that the 2000 whatever 4 whatever year, no, 2008 whatever year it was that the sneaker came out, that glow in the dark Kanye, that beautiful dark twisted, that Kanye has to bless Travis for, you know, giving him permission, but they got to do a record together that is of that era and time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And then like Travis has to push the envelope further than he's done so far. And when I think of like the Air Max that he did with the, you know, the sole was still kind of painted and, you know, half-assed, and if it got wet, it would drip off. But like some of the materials on there, like the felt on there, or you know, it was different materials. I feel like you gotta go there. We don't want a winterized version of anything. We want you to push the envelope further. That's what we want. We need La Flame. We need Astro Kid, like straight up, and glow in the dark Kanye come together. That's what I need.
Yeah. And you know what we don't need is some clown eating cereal out of these.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It'll be oatmeal or something like that by that time.
No, they'd be eating the cereal, the puffs.
You know what they're gonna be doing? They're gonna pour the barbecue sauce in the sneaker and dip in chicken nuggets.
There you go. Nuggets and
Yo, how come there wasn't any toy in the meal?
That's whack. You know what's crazy is I was searching for, which is why I went to McDonald's so many times and got so many Travis Scott meals, because there were supposed to be toys.
Yeah.
And I remember week 1, they said that week 2, they were dropping the toys. So that never happened.
Yeah.
I think they did that because of the mayhem that could have ensued.
Oh,
they were dropping
McDonald's
toys.
wasn't ready for
I mean, if you even remember back when they dropped other toys and meals like that, I mean, there were some crazy things that happened when people were trying to get those. You put Travis in 2020.
Yes.
You kidding me? Like, that's just dangerous. Dangerous.
Man. All right, now I got another what if.
That's
within the what if. In the what if.
Ooh. Triple
What if we introduce our next interview, bro? What if we let SHOEZEUM up in this pod? All right. We have our very special guest, Jordy Geller, a.k.a. SHOEZEUM. You guys may know him from the gram. We're excited to have you here, man. How you living?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Your story is incredible. So just give us the quick backstory on how you became such a knowledgeable collector.
I've always loved sneakers ever since I was a kid. Grew up always wanting them and never really getting them because they were too expensive. My parents weren't about to buy them for me. When I was in my early 20s, I found myself at a swap meet. At the time, I was in law school, and I was just walking through the aisles at the swap meet one Saturday morning, just kind of looking around. I was very broke, which is why I was at the swap meet to begin with. It was like the only place I could go and afford anything. And I stumbled upon this vendor that was selling sneakers, and he was selling dead stock Nikes. They were $20 a pair, and they were vintage. Like, they were from the 90s. I mean, this was the early 2000s, so they weren't like vintage, but in my eyes at the time, I was like, okay, you know, these are, some of them are 10 years old or older, $20 each. He had Dunks, Air Force Ones, Hirachis. I was like, wow, these are definitely worth more than $20 a pair. So I went to the ATM.
You didn't tell him that.
I had, what'd you say?
You didn't tell him that, did you?
No.
Smart man. Okay.
I went to the ATM, cleaned out my checking account. I had a little over $300. So I had my $300 in 20s in my hand. I walked back up to the vendor, and I was like kind of holding the money so he could see it. You know, money speaks loud at swap meets.
Yep.
And I was like, hey man, I like your shoes. I've got $300. What do you think about selling me 20 pairs for $300? So I bargained them down to $15 a pair. And he said, sure. So I spent probably a half an hour on my hands and knees going through the shoes, picking out the best ones. And I brought them back to my 1-bedroom apartment, took pictures of them, and put them on eBay. And I just auctioned them off. Started it off at like $1 and just let them go. And they sold for $75, $100, maybe $125 if I was lucky. And man, this was like before PayPal. So I had to wait for people to send me checks and money orders and sometimes cash in the mail. I was looking forward to the mail coming every single day. And the money would come, and then the weekend would come and I would go back to the swap meet and buy more shoes. And when I was lucky enough to get my hands on these cool shoes, I would take them home and do research on them, you know, just on the internet, just learning all about them, the inspirations behind them, who designed them, what years they came out. A lot of times I had a good idea because, you know, I grew up a Nike kid and admiring the shoes, but most of what I learned was just digging and researching. And in order to sell the shoes and get the most money for them, it was important to learn the history behind them. So I did this until the guy at the swap meet raised his prices up and then eventually disappeared. But I had a good thing going because I could sell shoes all day and night long. I just needed to know where to find shoes. Yeah. So I started hitting up the outlets and the clearance stores and even the regular malls like the Foot Lockers and Foot Actions, Finish Lines, Chics, like all the different sneaker stores that were around in the early 2000s. And I would go in and just, you know, what happens with your shoes that don't sell? Like, oh, you know, we got this clearance rack. Oh, some of these are tucked away in the back. And I would just buy shoes for super cheap, take them home, research, learn all about them, flip them for more money, and just take the money and do it again and again and again until Nike actually banned me from shopping at their stores. Yeah, they sent me some cease and desist letters saying basically that I was no longer welcome to buy shoes or return shoes, and I couldn't even ask anyone why, and it was done.
Jordy, real quick.
Yeah.
So how did Nike find you in order to ban you? Or did they have a
great question?
Like, did they?
Efren, Nike could find you right now in the middle of this podcast if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think Efren made
shoes from them every week. They know where you live, right?
Efren made a parody video of that, but it's too true. It's actually not a parody.
When this happened, it was May 2009. I was devastated. I mean, I probably spent the previous 8 years of my life on the road at the Nike factory stores. Like, it's all I did. It was my favorite thing to do. Like, my friends would be out going to bars or, you know, just doing fun things. And for me, I would rather, like, for me, the fun stuff was shopping for the shoes. So when they banned me, it was devastating. And I tried to survive and keep finding shoes to resell. I would hit up the Foot Lockers and stores like that, but it didn't really work like it did being able to just frequent the factory stores all the time. So I changed what I was doing and I built the world's first sneaker museum. At the time, I had 15,000 pairs of sneakers that were mine, that I had amassed mostly from the factory stores. I mean, like a sea of shoes. You can't even believe what it looked like. Racks and racks and racks.
Where did you have these?
I had a 9,000 square foot warehouse in San Diego. It was full of 15,000 pairs of shoes, and Nike banned me. And I was looking at these racks. I was selling about 100 to 200 pairs a day on eBay at the time.
Wow.
Like, my inspirations were Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory and Disneyland. Like, I wanted to build that place for sneakerheads and really, like, take Soul Collector and Sneaker News and Nice Kicks and Hype Beast and bring it to life.
Here's my question. Fast forward like 10 years, 15 years, whatever it's been, and you see websites like StockX and GOAT and basically all of these platforms that are built around reselling and probably doing massive volume every day, maybe as much or more than you were doing. How does that sit with you, being someone who kind of like was at the front end of that, and now that you're sitting here at the back of it looking at companies who are capitalizing on that and Nike not really doing anything about it?
Well, I'm not surprised at the growth of the reselling of sneakers. You know, I mean, when I was reselling them, there were very few places to be able to sell them. And it was difficult to do.
Mhm.
You know, you had to take good pictures and write up descriptions and do the customer service. And I think in a lot of ways, things have evolved for the better. But of course, some of these other marketplaces have their inherent flaws too.
Mhm.
I don't hate on it that there's these marketplaces and resellers that are thriving and that Nike tried to stop me, because actually looking back, it was like the best thing that ever happened to my career. At the time, it was devastating and I didn't know what I was going to do. But then I evolved and I did something different and even cooler. And, you know, now here I am 11 years later after Nike banned me, and I'm still going very strong in the sneaker world, getting to do what I love.
That's awesome. That's like the Frank Abagnale story. Are you guys familiar with that? Like the Catch Me If You Can, right?
But they didn't give me a job yet. I keep waiting for them to be like, man, you know what?
Hey, you're going to get another knock on the door. It's going to be another letter from Bauer Drive. It's going to be a good one this time.
Speaking of the letter, where did you keep it? Did you frame it?
Yes, I have both copies and both of them are framed. And it's something that I look back and I'm really proud of. It's crazy because like when it happens, something that seems like it's just like so devastating. But then if you take a step back and make something good out of it, you actually look back and you're like, wow, I'm sure glad that happened. Because like when I was selling 100 or 200 pairs a day, I could have been selling 1,000 or 2,000 pairs a day and it wouldn't have mattered. But I really feel like the impact of the SHOEZEUM was so much greater than anything that I could have done just by making more money selling shoes. You know, I got to share my passion and my love for the shoes with people all around the world. And I would never have gotten to do that if I was just going to this outlet, buying another 100 pairs of shoes to flip and make more money on, you know, like, I don't know. I got to do something fun. And
there's no dollar amount attached to that. That's invaluable.
Yeah.
Yo, I absolutely love your perspective on that. And one question I was thinking about as we sit here was, as you amassed that collection and then it turned from obviously business into cultivating this amazing experience for sneakerheads through SHOEZEUM. What is a story or two that you could tell us of maybe a crazy lengths you went to get a certain pair in your collection or in the SHOEZEUM? I'm sure you have a crazy story or two in trying to get that one pair maybe that you had to showcase.
There's a lot of crazy stories, you know, crazy acquisitions, stuff that I missed that then later resurfaced. I remember one in particular was the Paranorman foam posits. I was really gunning for one of them when they were originally being auctioned off on eBay. You may recall they did a contest, Weird Wins. People had to hashtag that on Instagram with pictures of themselves as kids. And if you had like a picture where you were like a weird kid or doing something funny or whimsical, they hooked you up with Paranorman foam posits. And they did that for 800 pairs. But then there were also 80 of them that they auctioned off on eBay. And the 80 of them went to Lady Gaga's charity, like the proceeds from the auctions. But those shoes had like some special things that the other 800 didn't have. And I really had my eye on pair number 45 out of 80. It was a size 11. I collect my size range, which is 11 to 12. And I love Michael Jordan's jersey number. So like I wanted either 23 or 45, but like number 23 was like a size 8 or 8.5. So I said
number 12. He wore number 12 for a day.
That would have worked too. He wore number 9 too, but those little ones were like smaller sizes. So like to me, number 45 was like perfect. And I missed out on the auction because I was giving a tour of the SHOEZEUM to like some higher up at Bally's. When the SHOEZEUM was open in Las Vegas, at first I opened it up in San Diego, but then I moved it to Vegas. And when it was in Vegas, my dream was that it would be discovered by some important person that represents a big casino, and that they would like take the collection to the next level, and it would be like the sports book at the Cosmopolitan or like some amazing bar at like, I don't know, whatever. So I happened to get to give a tour to some really important person from Bally's, and I totally spaced and missed the auctions. And I was like so bummed, and it was over. And you know that feeling when you're like, you want to win an auction, but then like you either lose or you forget about it. You're like, oh man, and it like haunts you days afterwards. So that's how this was. But then lo and behold, this guy comes to the SHOEZEUM like a couple months later with a pair of Paranorman foam posits. Not only that, but they were number 45. And he had all the paperwork that he won the auction. But when the SHOEZEUM was up and running in Vegas, I was so strapped. Like every penny that I had went into resurrecting that place and keeping it running. And I was losing money day after day, like just keeping the air conditioning running, paying the security for the place. I did not have extra money sitting around to buy these foam posits that were like in front of me now for the second time. So somebody actually snapped a picture of me looking at the box, and I was like, oh man, there they are. But I couldn't afford them. And then 2 years after that, they were on eBay. Same seller, same dude, pair number 45. I ended up winning the auction for like $3,100. I was so stoked.
Nice.
But it was just, you know, just like one story
Happy
chasing
ending.
after one particular pair. And I don't know, when you asked me, that's the one that came to mind.
That's amazing, man.
That is amazing. That is amazing. So a few years back, you decided to stop collecting. What was that feeling like, and what's your relationship with shoes, sneakers these days?
So, you know, I've never completely stopped collecting. I just have evolved as a collector.
Ooh, I like that.
I've learned that less is more, and I've sort of become more of a niche collector, focusing on the stuff that I really love, which happens to be the really early stuff. I think that that's like the super cool stuff instead of the newer retros that they're just like cranking out day after day. But for me, it's been a really interesting evolution because I've always been a sneaker lover and a sneaker head, and I was a reseller for a long time, and then eventually evolved into curating the SHOEZEUM and really being a collector. But the thing about being a collector is it doesn't pay the bills, and you can't support a family just by collecting things, you know? So I've had to evolve again into going back and being sort of a dealer, like buying and flipping and buying and reselling. In a lot of cases, I am a consigner, or I run consignment sales for people. So consigners come to me and consign their items, and I'll sell their collections for them. I have a guy who's about to drive 325 dead stock Air Jordans from California to me that I'll be selling for him this coming holiday season. I've been working a lot with Sotheby's lately, which has been incredible. In the last 15 months, I sold the Nike Moon shoe for $437,500. That was a world record. And then I broke that record by selling a game worn Jordan 1 for $560,000. And that was just this last May. So like in those two shoes alone through Sotheby's, I sold two pairs for $997,500.
That's
insane.
That's it.
That's it. Just 2,500 short of the middle.
And the game worn Jordans, one's a 13, one's a 13 and a half. Is that right?
That's right.
That's the way he did it.
That's how he did it.
Has becoming a father changed that perspective for you as well? Did that play a part in your view of collecting?
Yes, unquestionably. So actually, when The Last Dance was airing, you know, sort of at the beginning of this pandemic, and the Michael Jordan market started to soar. My wife and I were watching The Last Dance. You know, we were keeping up with it. So like the first Sunday we watched 1 and 2, and then the next one, 3 and 4. And as we were watching the early episodes, I kept talking about my Air Jordan 1s, and I was like, I'm never selling those shoes. Like, I'm never selling those shoes. Look at Michael Jordan. Like, he's the greatest. Those shoes are the greatest. We're keeping those forever. But then as the prices of Michael Jordan stuff started going through the roof, there was an Olympic jersey that went for $216,000 that previously sold the exact same jersey, sold for like 50,000 not that long before. So it's like, damn, that thing sold for 4 times as much. And then like a pair of game worn Jordan baseball cleats went for like crazy money, like almost $100,000.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at my kids and my wife, and I'm thinking about those Air Jordan 1s, you know, and I was just like, man, how can I hang on to those shoes and be selfish and not look out for my family? And, you know, the opportunity is there for me. I can put them out there. It's the best Michael Jordan piece on the market at a time when the market is hotter than ever. And it was really my kids that led me to know that I made the right decision. We sold that shoe, and the first thing we did was like fix up our house and our backyard. We tore out our back deck and repaved our grass that looked like crap is now nice and green. And my kids are out there on the swings playing, and it's like,
that's awesome.
Man, this was worth it. You
that's
know?
real
like,
dad talk right there.
Yes,
I
so
had
dad.
my time with those Jordans. I truly cherished them. I mean, I miss them, but I did the right thing, you know, and I'm using the money to make more money, to be able to provide for my family, you know, not like
to make
in
memories,
some greedy way or anything like that, but life is expensive, especially when you got 2 kids, you know, kids' shoes are expensive. I mean,
they are.
Gosh. So
that is a harsh reality.
I don't know. I just take pride in providing for my family.
That's good.
So I gotta ask, has Nike since taking you off the blacklist, have they ever reached out to you after? How did that happen?
Okay, so they banned me. I took it upon myself to build the SHOEZEUM, and then I really wanted to share it with Nike. I wanted to be like, I want to show you who you banned. Come see what I built. I love your shoes more than anything, you know? So I built this place, and I started calling the people at Nike, just cold calling. Hey, can I speak to Tinker Hatfield? And actually, back in those days, they would transfer you.
What?
Like, I got to talk to Sandy Bodecker just by calling 503-671-6453.
Oh,
and saying, can I speak to Sandy Bodecker? And, you know, boom, they transferred me to him. And,
that's crazy.
you know, same thing with a lot of the higher up people. And sometimes they would just transfer me to their voicemail. So I would leave them a message. I would just say, hey, I'm Jordan Geller. I built the world's first sneaker museum. It's all Nikes. I just want to show it to you. Come experience it. Then I hand wrote letters, 112 of them. Like, didn't print them off, but like handwritten, dear Mark Parker or Phil Knight or so-and-so, I built the world's first sneaker museum. It's 9,000 square feet. It's all Nikes. I want you to come down and experience it. And then I sent each letter in like a special gold envelope requesting a signature. And I didn't send it all in like one package because I knew they would be like, oh, this is like unsolicited garbage. But like, no, like Mark Parker's secretary had to like sign for this like weird gold envelope. Eventually, Eric Sprunk, who was the former COO of Nike, reached out to me. And actually, he reached out to me for the first time during the halftime of the Super Bowl. Like, the Super Bowl is going on, it's halftime, and I get an email from this, like, really high-up dude at Nike. And he's like, hey, I'm checking out this letter that you sent and a DVD. I also sent, like, a DVD with videos and pictures of the collection. He's like, we'd like to come and see this. And I was thinking, shouldn't you be watching this? Super Bowl? But, I mean, I was stoked, you know, and not too long later, the Nike executives flew down to San Diego. We spent the day together. They fell in love with the place, told me it was very important to them that the SHOEZEUM remains exactly as it is so they could send more people out for inspiration. They ended up paying my rent, which was $18,500 for me to stay in the warehouse for 3 more months. They sent all these teams of designers and executives and just like higher ups at Nike to come down for a tour. And then when it was all said and done, to get back to your question about being blackballed and blacklisted, I said, can I go back and shop at the stores again? And they said, yes, you can. And they sent me a little email, but they said, make sure you follow the rules. Because the reason why they banned me is I would go to the outlet they have these rules at the factory stores that like each person can only buy 10 pairs of the same shoe. I would go to the outlet, find a rack of shoes. There'd be like 80 of them that I wanted. So I could only buy 10. So I needed 7 more people. So I'd go in the parking lot or like wherever and be like, hey, like, would you come in and buy 10 pairs of shoes for me and I'll give you $10 or like $5 or $20, like whatever it took. And that's really like why they shut it down.
So they banned you from store because of a store policy.
Yes.
Oh, give me a break.
Well, they never told me why, but I could imagine that was.
You know how many times my mom's violated store policy in her life?
What does your mom do?
She'll return things without a receipt, go to different
Oh
stores,
my God.
return them. You know, I mean, I don't want to, you know, I already called her out.
So, yeah, you
it's already too late.
definitely called her out.
My mom
That's
returns the wrong things to the wrong store. That's her
Oh
thoughts.
my goodness.
Yeah, if you got banned on those grounds, my mom would have been banned on every single department store she ever
Just
visited.
tell her not to do it at Nike.
Yeah, right.
Beware.
Man.
Yeah. One last thing. Didn't Joe Soltero? Isn't he the one that connected us to begin with, or did I make that up?
Yes,
No,
he
that's it.
was the one.
Yeah. So he's such a good guy, and I want to give a shout out to him. And he's one of the people that came to the SHOEZEUM that I'll never forget. I mean, first of all, his ticket to the SHOEZEUM came from his kids who bought it for him on Father's Day.
Oh,
and I remember how
God.
grateful he
That's
was
sick.
for that. So it's very fitting, you know, that we're doing this podcast
Right.
and that's how he and I originally met. But I'll never forget. So I had all the Air Jordans were on display, and here's Joseph. And he is laying down on the floor, taking a selfie with his phone with the Air Jordan 4s behind him, the military ones, because he had that shoe back in the day in 1989. He had this big smile on his face, and he told me that. And then afterwards, he sent me a picture of him, like, you know, as a young kid with the 4s on. And he and I have kept in touch. Actually, for the original unveiling of the Nike mag in Hollywood at the Montalban, I got him invited there, so we got to go and like celebrate with all the Nike hires. But he's a good dude, and I'm glad that he connected us.
Yeah, he's awesome.
That's awesome. Oh man, thanks so much, man. Where can people find you? Find out more about everything that you have going on.
I'm on all social media as SHOEZEUM. I try to respond to all of my DMs and questions, so feel free to give me a follow, and if there's anything I can do to help you guys out, I don't know, track down a pair of shoes or help you figure out what a pair of shoes was that you had a long time ago, just reach out and I'll do my best.
Yo, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming on, dude. This has been such a great conversation.
Thanks, guys, for your time.
Listen, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast. If Efren put any bad stuff at the top, this is going to be my last podcast. I'm just letting you know. I told him at the top to cut out the bad stuff.
Hey, you didn't shut your camera off this time, so it was a better one than last time.
Man.
Yeah, he didn't pull a LeBron on us and cried about an MVP award he didn't win and said, "Hey, I'm not about championships."
Man. Right, that guy.
That's for another pod, I guess.
Yeah, that's for sure. Anyway, man, always a pleasure to chop it up with you guys. Thank you for everyone for listening to the Dad's Got Kicked podcast. If you are a first-time listener, definitely subscribe. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe. If you're listening to us on whatever streaming service you are, subscribe, leave us a review. Definitely rate us all the stars. And follow us on the gram.
Yeah,
this is where
doing?
this whole thing came from, man. At Dad's Got Kicks. But anyway, yeah, check us out on dadsgotkicks.com too. There's some dope stuff over there. And until next time, peace.